Oh, hello, everyone out there in Facebook and video land. And I'm Steve Wolfson. For those of you who haven't heard me before, I have been an evolutionary astrologer for, oh no, 16, 17 years, something like this. And the last 5 years, 6, 7 years, my life has been changing very much, uh, deepening, I would say. And I have found myself talking on here increasingly not so much about the technicalities of astrology and explaining why you may feel this, that, or the other thing, but really talking about, because EA is soul astrology. So how do we change our lives to use EA to help us connect with living more from the perspective of our souls? Um, I didn't particularly go looking for this transformation that I have been in. It just kind of appeared, and it's been going on for a long time now. It's taking me in spaces I never expected or predicted. And particularly in the last, I don't know, 2 to 4 months, I feel like my entire life is deepening and changing. The way that I look at life is fundamentally different than I have ever looked at it in my life, which has been going on in human terms for quite a while now. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing everything from a different perspective. And it's into that I want to speak. Um, I will be talking about my own process, but I want to make it really clear from the get-go. This is not about how wonderful I am or amazing I am, or, all this is going on for me. My point really is to using myself as an example, because I'm in contact with numbers of people that are going through deep transformation. I've been through it myself for a long time now, which is why I feel inwardly qualified to be talking about this stuff. Um, And I actually have been coming out the other side, so to speak, in ways that I never really dreamed could happen. And lo and behold, they're happening. And I am witnessing myself in this process. So my intent is wanting to share this, and particularly to connect with people who may be having a difficult time going through what we tend to call difficult transits, which I now realize, and from my own experience, are actually tremendous gifts, but they're gifts that are not very easy to take or to receive as gifts, because they're here to transform us into much more awareness of who and what we really are, which is quite different than what 99% of us have grown up believing who and what we are. And that's kind of amazing to realize. It's not an easy, the waking up, I experience it. It's not an easy process. It's really a surrender and letting go. I'm finding one of my favorite quotes from all this is the one, we spiritual people tend to always want to be surrendering. That the one who's trying to surrender is what is being surrendered. In other words, it's not that I'm surrendering, it's that I'm being surrendered. And it's not like I have no say in the matter, but the parts of me that know myself as who I have believed I am lifelong are not always happy about this, because they don't know what the hell is going on or where I'm going or headed. It doesn't feel safe. It feels insecure, scary, and so forth. And oftentimes it's difficult to communicate to other people, because not a humongous number of people are going through changes like this at any given time. Although I will add, at this point in time, the energies are such that more and more and more people are going through this, and more people are going to continue going through this, because this is clearly what's going on. So a month or so ago, 6 weeks ago, I was in a state of what I would call being broken open to yet another level. And certain things were touching me very deeply. I have lived a lot of my life tending towards the mental. I consider myself very sensitive. And one of the ways that I structured my life to deal with my sensitivity was to just not feel so much of what was going on. It's safer to stay in the mental, to conceptualize reality. And a lot of the changes that have been going on is not abandoning that, those valuable skills, but also touching into the heart, the emotion, the living, breathing presence. And I've been cracked open many times over many years, but I was having a major cracking open, breaking through within the last month. And it was at that point, it's an interesting experience, because it oftentimes for me, there's a lot of just kind of breaking down, crying. But it's very funny because it's not really a crying of despair or anguish or sadness. It's almost like a crying of relief and release. And it includes grief, sadness, happiness, everything, all mixed in together. And it's just, and when it comes upon me, I'm learning to just let myself get into it and just stay there for as long as I want to be in that space. Sometimes it's 15 seconds, and sometimes it can be a couple of hours or even a day. And I just have found it beautiful. So one of the things that really helped me get into that space not that long ago was listening to Leonard Cohen singing his song Hallelujah. So I've never been I was never a humongous Leonard Cohen fan. I liked him and all this. But I started listening to him again, and all of a sudden I felt like I was getting something that I had missed for decades. And I heard him singing the song, and him singing the song was so touched what I was feeling inside. I started breaking down. It's like somebody's actually feeling it, somebody's actually saying it. And I want to pulled out three verses. The story with the song was he spent years writing the song. He had up to 80 verses, and he couldn't get it right. And he finally stripped it down to something like 5 or 6. And he put it on a record and nobody listened to it. And then somebody did a cover of it and it became popular. And then it kind of backed in and now became one of the most widely covered songs that there are in the top echelon of songs, like Imagine, John Lennon, that type of realm. So I just want to read out 3 of these verses. And I call this talk the Broken Hallelujah because that's one of the phrases that he spoke about. And it says, "You say I took the name in vain. I don't even know the name. But if I did, well, really, what's it to you? There's a blaze of light in every word. It doesn't matter which you heard, the holy or the broken hallelujah." And something, I've heard the song many times, but something in it just hit. And, the gist of it in a nutshell is every bleeping thing on this planet, in our lives, everything is holy, is divine. The worst possible experience you have ever had, I have ever had. Underneath it, there's a place where it's holy, precious, a privilege, unique, and divine. Now, our ego, our personality, is not going to experience it like that. It becomes something one has to grow into. And that comes from seeing the bigger picture of myself as soul. I'm well aware of myself as person. Almost all of us are well aware of ourselves as people. We're not so aware of ourselves as soul. And to me, these are the energies that are coming in. The awareness of soul is breaking through. This is a whole new level of consciousness and awareness that is coming. And in order for me to move into that, there needs to be a breakdown or breaking up of who I have thought that I am. Now, where this gets into, and this is why I like the song, and I'm going to get back to that, but where this gets into is, or what I have been observing, especially for the last 2 months, is that at the core of most of us, at the core of most of our complexes are weird stuff. People that are really strange and out there, and us too, as differences of extremes. There is this core of unworthiness, a sense of unworthiness in the core of, from what I've seen, pretty much everybody. And I've been saying really clearly, this is the source of pretty much all of my or anyone's issues. Now, and this unworthiness comes from conditioning from the time we were born, because 99% of us were raised by people who themselves felt unworthy. This goes back a long way. Now, there's different responses to feeling unworthy. One side of the response is to feel shitty about yourself and that you're worthless and you can't get things right. And whether this is an over predominant feeling that takes over your life so you don't try to do anything, or it's just something that comes up when certain moods or experiences are happening in life, it's still there. Ironically, the so-called opposite of feeling shitty about yourself, what we might call a narcissist who claims to be the greatest person in the world, nobody matches me and I deserve all that. That's like the flip side or the polarity of feeling really bad about yourself. It's the same thing, heads and tails. And that's why. Because there's a core of unworthiness in there. Because anybody that needs to feel superior is because inside they feel inferior. And they're not going anywhere near that. You can give them $25 million and they're not touching it. That's the way they have constructed their safety. So in order to move to the soul, wherever we are, we have to touch the places that we don't want to go. We have to feel them. And the conditioning that we've received is when I start feeling that, it makes me feel worse about myself. That's why we don't want to feel it. That's why I haven't wanted to feel it. And when I don't want to feel it and it's coming up, the easiest thing to do is to push it back at somebody else. Took me a long time to understand this. Somebody would say something, somebody said something that hit me in the gut, so to speak. And then I would get mad And I would start going back at them. Oh, yeah, what about you? Blah, blah, blah. Here's the list. You know, what about that? What about that? What about that? And gradually, I started seeing that the reason that I had this defensive shutdown posture was because their words, their action hit me in the most wounded, hurt places in me. And I was not on good terms with those places. That was the last thing I wanted to feel or know that was in me. And part of the turnaround has been realizing, because, how do I put this? A lot of it for me was shame. And there's actually this crazy thing where you can feel shame about feeling shame, because it's not spiritual, quote, quote, to be angry. It's not spiritual to feel bad about yourself. It's not spiritual to be angry, to be judgmental of other people. It's not spiritual to feel bad about yourself. You're supposed to feel wonderful because you're divine, but inside you feel like crap. So there's a dichotomy there. So the interesting thing is, the more the stuff comes up, the more it touches the place that feel bad. I actually want to jump. Do I have this open here? Yeah. So one of the other influences for the last month for me, surprisingly, has been listening to some Ram Dass talks. I'm from the generation that, you know, Ram Dass influenced and was influential in, and frankly I was never that drawn to him. I heard him live one time at an event I was at, and I was like, I just wasn't drawn to him. And so then he died, and then Ram Dass stuff was everywhere, and I started listening to it. And where I tell my joke, one of my favorite quotes from Mark Twain is that Mark Twain said something to the effect of, when I was 18 years old, I couldn't believe how stupid my father was. When I became 21, I was amazed at how much he had learned in only 3 years. And, you know, maybe I have something to do with this. So that's how I feel with Ram Dass. I think it was just me hearing, like being ready to hear something, a message delivered in a way that was different than I was open to before, and finding value in it. So I've been listening to him, and I have been extremely impressed with the self-permissiveness that he speaks of. I want to read this short thing. He was speaking about, this was in a talk about addictions, and he was talking quite honestly about his own different, varied kinds. Dealing with things you are caught in, the minute you try to stop them, you invest them in a way. All my recriminations didn't help anything particularly. They weren't really functional, except trying to make me feel comfortable with myself. So why this was profound for me is because most of us are in cultures where you're supposed to strive to achieve, do more, be better, all that. So when tapping into or discovering or realizing places inside that don't measure up to those standards, learned standards, conditioning, but then self-imposed because we believe in the conditioning. Even if we say, I don't want conditioning, we still are conditioned and we act it out. And typically, especially in spiritual communities, which I've spent plenty of time in, there's denial of, in other words, we want to be the light, see the light, be happy. You know, anger is bad, negativity is bad, all this stuff is bad, the stuff that is in us in different ways that we're not supposed to feel, we're supposed to be outgrowing, because when I'm really spiritual, I'm not going to feel those things anymore, and I'm just going to be love and light all the time. So basically, I'm realizing that isn't really the way it works. And it's unlikely to ever work that way. That it's not about being our own inner critic, or in a lot of cases, having imprinted the voice of the mom and dad we couldn't wait to get away from, or at least the sides of them that were critical. We couldn't get away from them, but they have returned their gift by imprinting themselves inside of us and other influential people in our life. And that ironically, the way to work through fear, anger, shame, jealousy, those are the things that are popping up in my head, is not by trying not to think that way and pushing it away and saying I love you when I don't necessarily totally feel that way, but to actually be with those feelings, because we treat them like they're bad and wrong, like this is like some kind of pariah or cancer I want removed from me eternally and forever. And when I finally get to the place where I'm pure enough and holy enough and loving enough, then I'm not going to feel these things anymore. And I'm realizing finally, it's not the way it works. It's just not the way it works. Ironically, the best way to move through that stuff is to accept being there. To accept being there. Like, hey, I'm angry right now. And I'm not angry because you did this to me. I am beginning to see it more and more as you actually are giving me a great gift by acting or speaking in a way that is putting me in touch with parts of myself that I would much prefer not be there. And I have kept them like orphan children that are relegated to the basement, the attic, the barn, whatever you want to call it. I don't want them in my family. And yet they're there. And as I have welcomed them in, I have been realizing more and more, they're actually innocent parts, very childlike, innocent parts of myself that have only the best of intentions in mind, and have always only had the best of intentions in mind. And when they're angry, it's because they have taken so much crap for so long of being blamed and judged and scapegoated. They're just mad, like little kids get mad. And as I spend time with them, being with them, listening to them, making friends with them, finding out what they want and what they need and what they're really, truly upset about, my relationship with those parts of myself is changing. Those places are feeling safer to appear, like I'm not going to reject them like other people have done. And we're becoming friends. And it's like, you know, I've had a cat now for 4 years or so. And over that time, I gradually, little by little, make friends, because the cat begins to trust me and feel safe that she can be who she is, and I'm not going to do anything weird to her or get mad at her. And it's very similar with these parts. I have not treated them very well. Most of us have not treated those parts of ourselves very well. And we're not bad or wrong for this. That's the point. The first place our wounded selves go on hearing a statement like that is, yeah, I've been screwing up all along, but now I'm going to change. Well, you have not been screwing up all along. I have not been screwing up all along. It has been intended to be exactly the way that it has been. It's perfect the way it has been, even though it's been painful, sometimes very painful, but it has been perfect. They have not screwed up at all. Now, in the beginning, that sounds almost crazy in relation to how I had learned to think about myself and about what is the point of life and all this. But it's gradually sinking in. It's really, this is true. This is the real reality. Everything that happens, painful or not, is here to help us to grow. Sometimes a parent needs to let a child go through an experience that they know is going to be painful for that child. But protecting the child from things that don't feel good is not truly loving the child, even though on the outside it may appear that way. Because we learn from our difficulties as much, if not more, than we learn from the things that are going and flowing smoothly. There's nothing wrong with things that are going and flowing smoothly. That's awesome. And we get to experience those. But it's not ever going to be, while in a human body, that it's going to, in other words, waking up or understanding, oh, I am a soul and all this is not going to make the pain go away. It's not going to make the suffering go, what we now consider suffering, to go away. That's like a New Age myth that I can manifest my way out of the things I don't want. That actually is kind of, and it's not intentional, but that actually is kind of disrespecting the things that occur in my life that I'm not that comfortable with, because everything is divine. Things I love are divine, and things I don't love are also divine. And it's not like some negative, it's not my bad karma, and it's not I'm being punished, and it's not those evil people over there. We don't know why stuff happens. I don't know why stuff happens. Often enough, something happens I've had it in my own life. Often enough, I've had things happen that were really, really hard to go through. And 3 years, 5 years, 10 years later, I find myself going, oh my God, I'm actually grateful that these things occurred, because I can see how I have changed as a direct result of those very painful experiences. And I get it. If they hadn't occurred, I would not be who I am now. They were helping me get there. And taking it even further, this is the point of being in a human body in the first place. Because most of our world, and has been me, even though believing in reincarnation, more than believing, knowing that there's reincarnation, but still identifying who I am as this incarnation. These are just experiences that I'm having. And we need to be here. It's not I've had the lives of trying to transcend all this, and being detached and removed and wandering around and all this. And that's not bad and wrong either. But that's what I've learned. That's not what it's about. It's actually kind of an art to learn how to live in both worlds at the same time. To learn how to remember in a world where it is pretty much forgotten at this point, of this eternal soul identity within me, at the same time as participating in the life that I'm in. And predominantly in that life, most of the time being surrounded by people who are not aware, not only don't have awareness, but don't even have interest at this point in understanding the greater life. They're seeking happiness and fulfillment from what goes on around them in this life, which we, in United States, Western culture, have been taught that's what you do. You know, you know, thousands of people and you have all these interests and all this, and you find your happiness from this. And there's not, and again, I'm not saying that's bad. I'm saying it's not enough. I'm finally getting, there is not lasting happiness and fulfillment in that, which is why people then get into this cycle of turning their life over and dumping this and moving here and moving that because it's not working for them anymore. They're not happy, in other words. The initial glow has worn off, and well, it's time to move on. I've lived like that. I've had lives, lots of lives like that, and I've had experiences like that in this life. And I've found there's no resolution in that. It's not about finding the right person, the right job, the right career, the right interests. I'm not saying don't. I'm not saying have a an abusive partner and a career you can't stand. That's not it either. But it's about realizing, me being a very Libran person, the happiness, fulfillment, and insight and understanding and calmness and under and centeredness that I have been seeking throughout my life starts in here, no place else. So being a good Libran person, when this process started, it was a long time ago now, but I had no idea how to do that. I had no idea how to do that. I had no idea how to live myself. I had no idea how to regenerate my own energy. And so this becomes the basis of codependency. It's like, I'll love you if you love me. Um, and then I become insecure because I don't want that person to leave, even if they're pissing me off a lot of the time, or I'm pissing them off a lot of the time, because then I'm not, the source of love I have in my life is not going to be there. It's going to go away. And then I'm back stuck with myself again. Now, I'm not in any way saying from this that one shouldn't be in relationships, um, that one should be alone, that you can't have the two. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying, because I've been in a relationship for 6+ years now, and it's been very difficult and at times, and it's just been tremendous growth because somehow we matched in a way of both desiring to really grow and the way that we connect. And it has really transformed my sense of what relationship is. I'm not married, but I would say what marriage is. Very different than what I thought. It's not about what I get out of it. And it doesn't mean that I've sacrificed my life. I'm not saying that either. It's more like what I'm seeing, allowing someone else to be themselves and facilitate and support their journey into being okay with themselves out of unworthiness. And at the same time, yet being on their own 2 feet enough to have the space and being allowed to have the space to be with themselves. And the same with me. To, the realization I cannot make someone else happy ever, but I certainly can't make someone else happy all the time. And yet, the child in us yearns for that. I want to be happy all the time. I want to feel loved all the time. Um, and the growing realization is I can be loved all the time by me, by myself, and I can learn how to do that. Another piece that goes with this is the real increasing realization how utterly and absolutely unique each human being is. And I'm including animals, trees, all this. There's no duplication whatsoever. There's some similarities. Each one of us is utterly, utterly unique. Thus, my lifelong wish was to be understood, to be understood, to be understood. People don't understand me, all this. I finally realized nobody can understand me. I barely understand me a lot of the time. Um, Nobody can truly, deeply, deeply, deeply understand, or very few people. You have to be really, really, really awake to see and respect the individuality and uniqueness of each person. It just doesn't exist. And yet inside, that's what we yearn for and seek, because we collectively don't know how to offer that to ourselves. So, all of this goes back to the holy or the broken hallelujah. And the way I would put it is, until I started catching on, the holy hallelujah is when things were going the way that I wanted them to. And I felt good about, oh, this is amazing, this is awesome. And the broken hallelujah, which might have been at the time more like the hallelujah, was when things weren't going my way and it was difficult, hard, and painful. And I had a belief, Libran, that wasn't supposed to be like that. That when there was too much conflict and too much differences, that I was just in the wrong place with the wrong person or people. I have seen that that is not the case. And I also see I absolutely had to spend decades in that place. There was nothing whatsoever wrong with anything I did that wasn't getting or grasping what I'm beginning to grasp now, because all of that was preparation to allow me to get to this place. Enough pain, enough happiness, combine all this to be motivated, to be willing to take on change, and to allow the change to occur, and to realize that change was not bad. Yes, it's inevitable, but not only was it not bad, it's actually a tremendous gift. And it's actually the point of life, because everything in this world is changing all the time. And the humans seem to be the main species that doesn't want it that way. But that's the way it is. And so the letting go is just getting aligned with the fact that life is never standing still. In fact, my cute little metaphor about that is, I saw a Facebook post a few months ago. Somebody said, I don't know if they were kidding or not, I took it at face value. Somebody said, sometimes life reminds me of a Buddhist sand painting. Now, for anybody that doesn't know what a Buddhist sand painting is, they, monks and whatever, they come around and they spend an entire weekend making these elaborate paintings out of drawings or sculptures, whatever, paintings out of colored sand. And they're very elaborate. And then when the time is over, they take all the sand and they just, it's gone. So that's what the person said. Sometimes life reminds me of a Buddhist sand painting. And I took this as, this is the human thing of wanting to hang on to stuff. And I restrained myself from replying that I think you may have that backwards. The Buddha sand painting is symbolic of life, which is not the way we see or want life until we do, until we start catching on. So it's the whole, to me, it's a poem, so you can read whatever meaning you want into it. So it doesn't matter which you heard, the holy or the broken hallelujah. In other words, whether you tapped into the divinity, I've been calling it, see if you can relate to this. It's because it's been my experience in the last few months. I've begun to realize that even in the saddest and most difficult experiences and events, there is a way that I can come to see them when I can feel this incredibly poignant beauty and love that is behind or beneath or supporting the difficult experience. From the perspective of the soul, we can talk about death, dying, people that are either on the verge or potentially and all this. I mean, that's to the personality, that's pretty intense experience. And it's, I just have noticed how much can get cleared at the very end of someone's life. Not everyone, but many people have it. Stuff that's been lifelong, problems, issues, conflicts, it just doesn't matter that much anymore. People who haven't spoken in decades embrace. It puts it in perspective. And this is what, that's what I call a poignant beauty. You know, we go to a movie and we go to a touching movie, and that's what we want to see. We want to see the people that are just not getting along, finding a place where they can appreciate each other. That's what I call it. When it actually happens, that's the poignant beauty. The thing is, what I start seeing is, if we didn't have the conflict, we couldn't have that experience. If I got along with everybody, I couldn't have the experience of somebody that I've been way apart from for a long time and coming back together with them. It would not be possible. And that this is part of why we have experiences in the way that we do. When looked at from the perspective of the soul, everything that happens is here to help me learn, experience, understand, become more loving, more aware, and more observant of divinity playing out on this planet with these souls or cells that are fellow divine sparks. And everything is about that. So it's not, we get lost in, did my team win? My team didn't win. We didn't break the record for sales last quarter. Look at this incredibly cool new product, which is going to allow me to remotely turn the temperature down on my refrigerator from 4,000 miles away. And again, I'm not mocking this stuff. There's nothing wrong with it. But we have it out of perspective. We put it front and center. I have lived this way. We put it front and center, and it's not front and center. We have it out of context. When it's in context, that this is part of the experience of a soul and a waking up, awesome, have fun with it. But we try to find the worth, to negate the feelings of unworthiness through what we acquire, through what is new, through what is cool, through what puts me in the in-group in whatever realm I'm in, from being running all gamut, the coolest guy in the army to the coolest, music star, whatever, the whole gamut in between. It's like, I need to be the best, I need to be better, I need to be popular, I need this, I need that, I need the most sales, I need the most houses, on and on and on. Why? Because that makes me feel good about myself on some level for a very brief period of time, because always the urge, you get used to it, and then it's the urge for new. So what if I can find the happiness and fulfillment I'm seeking inside of myself? I notice I'm not making a lot of progress going through this poem, and I'm running down on time, and I think that's just okay. I didn't really, I allowed myself in this particular case to not prepare a whole lot in advance what I was going to say on this talk, because I felt like there was a lot in me that was going to come out. So the gist of what I'm getting at is it's literally like you cannot do anything wrong. You can't. And we can take this to extremes, and people can tell me, and I'm not going to argue with you, I'm going to shoot people, I'm going to rape people, I'm going to this and that. On a certain level, I will say what I just said, you can't do anything wrong. I don't condone that. That's not my point, and I'm not trying to say it's all right to do stuff like that. I'm keeping this more in the middle, not at crazy extremes. Because we tend to feel bad about stuff we've done. Why? Mostly when it didn't work out the way I wanted it to. I didn't do it good enough, or I blew this opportunity because I was too chicken, or, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm saying, even those feelings, even the feelings of I blew it, I could have done this, I should have done that, they're all part of what is intended. And the thing that really turns it around, um, the phrase I've heard that explains it the best that I like is, we need to learn to stop using these insights that we get about ourselves that show us things about ourselves that we're not yet aware of. We need to stop using them as weapons against myself. This is the one place, and I feel this is key. And again, I used to say it as beating myself up about beating myself up is still beating myself up. This is more like beating myself up about beating myself up about beating myself up is still beating myself up. It's not like these parts are bad. It's not like you order them to their room, or what is that word? You kick them out of the country, deport them. It's not about that. It's like accepting them. Okay, I get that there's a part in me that is really dissatisfied with my performance or my behavior today at fill in the blank. And the gist of it is, can I even practice or strive to accept that part of myself? The way to stop feeling bad about myself is not to try to destroy all the parts of myself that feel bad about myself. That actually only feeds them. They get stronger. Can I learn to be okay with that part, and also to not be controlled by it? Treating it as if it were a small child, a hurt small child. It wants attention, it wants love, it wants my love, it feels unloved. Can I learn to love it exactly the way it is and not let it run my life? I'll give a small example. When I got a new laptop a few months ago, I found out the camera, the video camera was not very good. I bought an external video camera. That's what I use now, much higher quality, a webcam. So I had it in a drawer uh, over. I had it in a drawer, and I was wanting to set it up to get ready for this talk. And I'm trying to open the drawer, and I couldn't open the drawer. And I had the sense that the camera thing was sticking up because it's like a drawer that's 2 inches tall. And I couldn't get it open, and I couldn't get it open. And I was getting really frustrated, out of proportion to what was going on. And I was about to get mad. And instead of getting mad, and instead of pretending that I'm not really mad because I'm too spiritual to be mad about such a silly little thing, I just stopped myself and I said, well, look what's going on here. You're getting angry about something that's pretty small, and clearly there's more. Clearly, you're using this as a release of anger that's in you. It's not just about this. But the point of it is, getting angry about it and is not really going to solve the problem. So it's okay that I'm feeling angry, but can I just tone it down? And I took the drawer and I moved it where I could really get at it, and I gradually managed to get the drawer open. And because I realized, I said, getting angry, I realized getting angry is not going to add anything to this process. Do you agree? And I had to say yes. It was like, it's only going to, the frustration is only going to make it even harder to get the drawer open. True? Yes. In the past, I would get angry. I mean, I let myself get angry. Wasn't ridiculous about it back, but I, I just see another way to go about it now. I didn't condemn my feeling angry. I didn't condemn the impulse. I didn't get mad at myself for arising anger, or I didn't get mad at myself because I didn't let it out. It's just like I felt that, and I don't need to go there, and I don't need to deny that it's there. I have places that get angry, and that's okay. It's okay. I get frustrated. It's okay. Um, and so I want to get back to this. So I call all that's the holy and the broken. Hallelujah. Because the broken, we tend to think I've spent my life being angry about all kinds of things that go on in the world, the way the world is put together, the way that people are, that they could and would and should be this, that, and the other thing, and blah, blah, blah. Um, and because I saw another way and all that. And lo and behold, in the last couple of months, I'm just seeing more and more. The world today is exactly where the world today is intended to be. The world today is perfect as it is for today, right now, this moment, because everything is always changing. Nothing is staying the same. And everything in the universe is evolving. And at the right point in time, things will be different in this world as more and more people become aware and awake and remember who they really truly are. And I am part of that process. We're all part of that process. And there are many of us that have come here that perhaps have a little bit more clarity than some other people, which does not in any way make us any better than anyone else. I feel like I came here with I feel like I was called here actually, and I don't mean by that karma. I feel like I was called, like, will you do this? And it's really about demonstrating something. Um, you know, to take an extreme example of it, if Jesus or Buddha was had been utterly pissed off about how unconscious people in the world were, they could not have lived out what they did. They would have been getting pulled off all the time. That doesn't mean that I think I should be like Buddha or Jesus, tomorrow morning, but I feel like we're learning this. step by step by step. And life is huge. There's billions and trillions of steps. And to even be in the 2020 world, to even be sitting here listening to somebody talk about evolutionary astrology or the stuff I'm talking about indicates already there's a certain level of awareness in a person who's drawn to this. And collectively, we're demonstrating, we're learning how to live in loving ourselves and accepting life as it is in a world where you can make really long lists of all the things that seem out of balance. And again, I'm not saying that people that are angry about whether they're on the so-called left or the so-called right. I spent a lot of time there in being upset about the way things are. And I just see that this very necessary, vital, important phase or part of evolving. And it can go on a long time. It could be, 15 lifetimes like that. Or it could be one lifetime like that. It's this is life is so vast and huge, which to our little 70, 80, 90, 100-year time span, it seems immense. But to our infinite soul, the progress of 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, 30,000 years is very small. And we're here we're here to illuminate at this time the human part of being a soul in this world at this time, in this place. That's why we're here. And it's okay that it's been really painful. It's okay that I can now judge myself as falling short back when on this, that, and the other thing. It's all okay. It's all okay. And I see my insight and understanding, the more that I am becoming, I'm not trying to be okay, it's simply happening. I'm seeing how it works. I'm kind of like, holy, who knew? It's unfolding. And as I allow it to unfold, it's literally accelerating. And it's why I talk like this, because it's very difficult for me at many points along the life that I've lived. And I felt alone in these changes a lot of the time. And it's my joy and happiness to be able to just be there to support people that are really in it. On an EA Zoom, we're talking about Pluto. When Pluto comes a knocking, your life goes a rocking. And we're not equipped for this. We don't know how to do this unless you've been through it, unless you've lived through it, unless you've been through it. And my desire, having lived through a lot of it, is to help other people navigate their way. They have to do it themselves, but to help, mostly a lot of it is just reassuring. You're not out of your mind and you're not doing anything wrong. This is hard, but it's not a punishment. It's in some ways the greatest gift you've been given, but we can't see that yet because we literally have to become the person that the changes that we're going through are trying to lead us to, or not trying, are leading us to, before we can appreciate what they're offering. We can't understand it yet. So some of it is just going on faith and the reassurance of other people, guides who have walked this way just a couple of steps more than the person that's in it. That yes, you're not out of your mind. You are going to find your way through it. And in the long run, you're going to be incredibly grateful that you did. And it takes everything we have some of the time through some of these transits, everything. And that's the point, because it's taking away who we have seen ourselves as, and it's showing us that we are way more than we ever dreamed. So I think that's a good place to stop this talk. So
Okay.
I appreciate those of you that have been here live, and if there are people out on Facebook, thank you, and people that will be listening to this later on. And I just encourage everybody, just go through. When it's too hard, slow down. When it's too hard, take a nap, literally. Rest. Nurture and be kind to ourselves. That is clearly the way through this. Not trying to white knuckle it through, but to nurture our way through. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Would you all please thank Steve Wolfson, everyone?
Totally agree. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you next time, Steve. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Linda.